He kōna ipurangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
No mai whakarongo mai ki te autai whenua. Welcome to Country Life. I'm Janina Schwanica.
And I'm Duncan Smith. G'day. Great to have your company. Today, we meet a boy who's already made his start in farming, rearing quails for their eggs.
We catch up with rural women New Zealand at the Fieldays to hear how they're celebrating their centenary this year.
And in keeping with the 100-year theme, we're on a farm in South Wairarapa that's been in the same family for over a century.
But first, to wrap what's been making headlines on the Rural News Desk this week. And RNZ's rural reporters have been busy keeping up with the latest at the Mystery Creek Fieldays near Hamilton. It's the largest agricultural event in the Southern Hemisphere and a great time for farmers to get a deal. One major tractor seller says there's already been an uptick in sales after the government's new tax incentive for farm machinery. Farmers can now deduct 20% off the purchase of new farm equipment from their taxable income. John Gilbert is with the Agricultural Machinery Multinational, CNH, and he says the market's already up 7%.
We've had examples, within the week of that announcement, people saying, I've been talking to my accountant, he said I need to buy a couple of tractors.
Farmers aren't the only ones spending big. The government announced a raft of new funding to support the primary sector. $4 million extra is going into a rural wellbeing fund, and $6 million will go to rural support trusts across the country. Here's the Agriculture Minister, Todd McClay.
We've got to make sure that rural New Zealand is resilient, that the health is strong and that the support that is needed is there. It's clear that the very best way the government can support rural New Zealand around mental health and resilience is to actually help farmers to help themselves and to help their neighbours.
And a new project tackling poor pasture growth due to climate change will receive $17 million in an industry joint venture. It's a 7-year research project between the government, Dairy NZ and Beef and Lamb. Dairy NZ Chair Tracy Brown says there's evidence that pastures aren't lasting as long as they used to, and more research is needed to halt the decline.
In the Waikato, pasture's been declining at 0.5 of a tonne dry matter per hectare over the last decade, and in Te Tautokorau, Northland, it's up to a tonne of dry matter per hectare.
Tracy Brown says it's about pulling the sector together to find solutions across different regions.
Rising commodity prices mean improving profitability for farmers and an easing on their wallets. Industry economist Paul Clark says meat, dairy and horticulture have been standout performers, particularly kiwifruit and apples. He says farmers are better prepared for future shocks, whether they're due to tariffs or a stronger New Zealand dollar.
Of course, you've got the impact of the currencies. What's going to happen to the New Zealand dollar and the US dollar? If the US dollar continues, if it depreciates broadly against all other currencies as well, you're likely to see prices of dairy products actually go up in US dollar terms.
Farmer satisfaction with banks is also slowly improving, but there's still a long way to go. Federated Farmers' new banking survey for May found 60% of 700 farmers were satisfied or very satisfied with their bank. The Fed's banking spokesperson, Richard McIntyre, says that's an improvement from the 53% who felt the same last November. However, it's still well below the 80% peak from 8 years ago.
But there's at least one cloud hanging over the sector. New figures show close to 40,000 hectares of sheep and beef farms have been sold for forestry since September last year. Beef and Lamb New Zealand released the research carried out by Orman Associates, which confirmed more than 30,000 hectares were sold last year and 29,000 in 2023. All in all, more than 300,000 hectares of farmland, whole farms that is, have been converted into forestry since 2017. Beef and Lamb Chair Kate Ackland says the data underpins long-standing concerns about whole farm conversions.
We're very supportive of incorporating trees within farms, and I think there's a real opportunity here for farmers to be part of the solution. What we're really concerned about is whole farms, really good productive land getting planted into trees.
Despite this, the Situation and Outlook for Primary Industries report, known as SOPI, paints a bright future for the sector, and kiwifruit is the shining economic star. The fruit has helped drive a 19% increase in export revenue from horticulture to $8.4 billion over the last 12 months. The team chatted with Colin Bond, who was also at the Fieldays. The chief executive of Kiwifruit Growers Incorporated says it's an outstanding result from the country's 2,800 growers and marketers Zespri, following a positive season.
From a kiwi fruit perspective, the last couple of years we've had some challenging growing seasons, but this year growers have produced some great yields. Zespri's doing an excellent job of selling that fruit into market. So for us it's a volume and value story, absolutely.
The SOAPI report also shows revenue from apple and pear exports is forecast to rise 18% to $1.1 billion. After a dip in export revenue last year, food and fibre exports are expected to earn a record nearly $60 billion in the year to June. Dairy makes up 45% of that, at $27 billion, followed by meat and wool, then horticulture. Here's Ray Smith of the Ministry for Primary Industries.
We're in a great place. Look at that, number of firsts. Butter, got all those AMF products, cream exports, it surpasses $5 billion for the first time. Infant formula over $2 billion for the first time. Kiwi fruit exports out of New Zealand, $3.9 billion. Apple and pear exports finally got over that $1 billion mark. They've been wanting to get there. The cyclone held them back a couple of years, but they're at 1.1. Aquaculture exports over $600 million. And sawn timber, a little bit of hope there because it's been quite tough in that forestry wood processing sector, over $1 billion. Conditions have improved dramatically. It has been an export-driven recovery.
Ray Smith says in the year to next June, export income is forecast to rise another 2% to $61.4 billion.
And lastly, Northland Te Tai Tokerau dominated at the Ahu Whenua Trophy Awards. The Ahu Whenua Trophy encourages Māori farmers to improve their land and overall business performance. It's been running for more than 90 years. A bull fattening farm near Whangarei, Whangaroa Ngaio Tonga Trust, was named this year's top Māori sheep and beef farm. The elated Trust co-chair Huhana Linden says they saw entering the awards as a learning experience and didn't expect to win.
This is a demonstration of how we can mahi ngātahi together now. It doesn't have to wait for treaty settlement. This is ongoing mahi tahi. And that's the thing, like in whenua Māori, we're so rich when we get our land back and we're supported to grow it.
Meanwhile, Te Tai Tokerau farm manager Kobe Warmington took out the Ahu Whenua Young Māori Farmer Award for sheep and beef. And that's the rural news for this week.
This is Country Life on RNZ National 101 FM.
Now to this week's guest. It was also at the Fieldays that RNZ's rural reporter, Monique Steele, caught up with the president of Rural Women New Zealand, Sandra Matthews. The organisation was first known as the Women's Division of the Farmers Union and was founded to connect rural women. It's still a force today and received a boost of $250,000 in this year's budget to expand its reach.
How many women do you represent across the country, Sandra?
Yeah, so interesting question. We've got about 1,650 members and growing all the time, which is great. And we're working really hard to bring more members around the country as well. It's a really broad spectrum of women too, ages and stages and demographics. Agri-professionals and then people working on farm, mums on farms. So yeah, a really wide demographic around the country.
If I could break some of that down, what are some of the sort of challenges or issues for rural mothers?
Rural mothers. Well, even when I was a mum 30 years ago, same challenges. Isolation, not having the support network that you've got around you, not having your mum there or your family there. In-laws are really great, but it's not the same as having your own family in front, around you as well. It's that isolation factor, time of travel, rural roads that are not safe or, have a lot of trucks on them as well. There's childcare access, so, preschools, childcare, those sorts of things. If somebody's working, which a lot of farming mums do work, they work on farm and, it's not just being in the house with your children, it's doing the home things too. So it's an overwhelm as well. So, and part of what Rural Women has done really well over many, many generations, and it's 100 years this year since we're established, we're very good at supporting those young mums. And we want to ramp that up again too, because there are so many ladies that I talk to around New Zealand that say, I'm lonely, I'm isolated, so what can we do to improve improve their lives as well on farm.
Of course, there'll be many issues on your plate. What are some of the top issues front of mind for you at the moment?
Yeah, there's always a number of issues for rural women in New Zealand. One of the big ones for us is school buses. The school bus system is, there's a policy that's been there for way too long, and we're advocating to actually have that policy updated. And there's a lot of rural communities that have been affected by planting of pines and selling off farmland, good productive farmland from sheep and beef and dairy, and planting. The rural communities are getting smaller, so it means that the number of children on buses is a set number, and the schools are getting smaller, which means the school bus gets lost. So we're really advocating for some change there, really important. And even just routes, some of the bus routes are being cancelled as well. Not cancelled, but adjusted, because there's not so many children on the buses.
Is it that the current policy is that it's like based on volume of children, and is that where a bit of the challenge comes in for organising routes?
It's part of it, yeah. It's the bums on seats, basically. Yeah, that's one part of it, and it's the economics of running the buses as well. So there are options for some rural communities, like in my community, the local incorporated society is actually running the buses, but you need people that have expertise in business to be able to do that and be able to replace those buses when they run out from the really bad roads. So a lot of the bus companies won't go out into the really remote areas because it ruins their buses as well. So there's maintenance issues, there's funding issues, there's children's backsides on seats. There's a lot of financial implications around it too. And, you know, the government has a limited pot of money, and we do understand that, but we would like to see the review of the policy around buses in rural schools.
Okay, how are schools, like area schools, for example, in the country, how are they adapting?
Yeah, I mean, rural is very good at adapting anyway, and innovation. So, you know, you can't just sit back and complain. You have to actually find some solutions, and that's what they're very good at doing. Although we'd like a little bit more support around the country for, you know, putting the financial support into those solutions as well. One of the other ones that we're talking about now is New Zealand Post. We've been advocating and, you know, talking to the powers that be around post and rural services. We understand that they haven't really listened to what we've been talking about, and we are concerned that that's going to hugely affect our rural communities.
Yeah, so what is the latest on the situation with the postal services?
In a lot of services around the country, they are down to three days a week or 2 days a week. What we're understanding is that they're going to reduce that even further and have a central box location for people to drive to pick their mail up. I'm based in Tairāwhiti, and since the storms, one of our areas, which is probably about an hour 20 from Gisborne, they haven't had a postal service since the storms, and now they're being told that they have to drive to Gisborne or to another area down a lot of gravelly, terrible roads to pick up their mail. So they'll have no service to the front gate, no postal service, no package service, and no way to get medicines or vet packages from town. It's really going to affect the more remote communities especially, and I understand even down in Canterbury, you know, some of the restaurants and things that are out in the other areas, they get their products delivered through the rural postie service. So, and that's not going to happen either. So it's really going to hugely affect our rural communities.
Is it a bit of a signal of the changing consumer habit?
It is to a certain degree, because I understand there's a really high percentage of what New Zealand Post does is parcels now, not so much mail, which is fine, but how do we get the post parcels to our farms if we need them, if we have no service to the front gate? Even if it was a reduced service, it'd be better than nothing.
The funding boost that was announced in the budget, what can you share with us on how that will be sort of allocated?
We're super excited to be announced in the budget and have the support of the government, and the trust of the government to be able to utilise that money that is going to help rural communities and women. So I won't say too much because we're still getting that announcement out, but we are going to be supporting rural communities in a much stronger way, with that money. And every cent is going to be spent very well for people on the ground.
And I guess lastly, 100 years of rural women of New Zealand, as you mentioned. How does one celebrate this?
Yeah, isn't it exciting? 100 years. 1925, Rural Women New Zealand was put together in the Women's Division of the Farmers Union. We are super excited. They've got about 42, 43 events right around the country, from small afternoon teas right through to big national events as well. So we kick off at the end of July. and we've got a beautiful rose that we're selling through our website, and we're going to do some plantings at the Botanic Gardens in Wellington to kick that off, and then we're going to have a wonderful year of celebration right around the country, and it'll culminate in a big awards night at Parliament next year in July, and a great, we hope, fingers crossed, a great garden party at Government House.
That was Monique Steele speaking to President of Rural Women New Zealand, Sandra Matthews, at the Mystery Creek Fieldays in Waikato. Now, on the school buses issue, we checked in with the Ministry of Education, which says route reviews help deliver school transport services that are fit for purpose and consistent with its current policy. While there's no current plans for review, the Ministry says it welcomes ideas from rural sector groups. Meanwhile, New Zealand Post says it has no plans to establish a central post office that rural families need to collect from, though some rural customers already have arrangements in place for mail collection. And lastly, as Sandra also mentioned, this year the organisation is celebrating 100 years. They've commissioned a nursery to develop a lovely pinky lilac rose to celebrate the centenary.
We're off to a tiny farm near Coromandel Town now, and I mean really tiny. It's where Sally Round met 12-year-old quail egg farmer Hamish Sturgeon and his farmer's market buddy Giovanni Vico.
Hi, you must be Hamish.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
How have you been?
Good, thanks.
This is Giovanni, my friend.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Giovanni. So do you work together, you guys?
No, but I do most of the quail. He just...
We're still buddies and we promote each other products.
Yeah.
What do you grow? What do you do?
My wife makes gluten-free bread. So at the moment we do that. We do everything gluten-free. Come to us. Next to Hamish.
Excellent. And you, Hamish, you are the man in charge of...
I do the quails. My mom said if I do it, I have to protect them, I have to care for them, I have to feed them, water them, do all the food for them. So that's what I do, and yeah.
How long have you been doing it?
I've been at least doing it since a year and a half, because those ones over there are my oldest ones.
And you don't sell the quails, you sell
the eggs.
You sell their eggs, okay.
I do bring sometimes the quails over to the market to show where they come from.
People are interested, are they?
Yeah. They sometimes think it's California quails with those little feathers on the head.
But they're not?
They're not. They don't have the feather on the head, but they're in different little variants. Like, they sometimes come in, like, black, but with little white strips where the main feathers grow from. Brown.
Hamish rears the Japanese quail variety for their eggs, which he sells at the farmer's market in Coromandel Town. He keeps them in cages in his garden at home. Let's go and have a look a bit closer, shall we?
Yep.
So how many quails have you got?
I got 29.
Should we just bend down a little because this is low on the ground, isn't it?
You want to show them the one that you got at the back?
So you haven't got all the quails here, have you, Hamish?
No, these are the older ones. If you hear them close enough, you can just hear the little peeps.
Yeah, well, you've got the microphone. You go for it.
And then if you're lucky enough, you can just hear the male crow. You hear that? That's quite cool. Oh, look over there. You can see some eggs.
Oh, 3.
Yeah.
How often do they lay?
They lay only when the sun's more around. Like in the summer, they get a lot of laying, but then slowly in the winter they stop because there's not enough sunlight. But it's quite amazing creatures, right, Giovanni?
Yeah, they're fantastic, eh? My Hamish takes them on a Saturday morning at the Coromandel market here. He takes them down there. He lets people hold them and play with them a little bit. And then eventually they buy some eggs, eh?
Yeah.
You know, that's a marketing strategy. You grab, right? You take the quails with you, eh?
Yeah.
So where did you get the idea from to sell the quail eggs?
Well, it wasn't really first to sell the quail eggs. It was just really first just to have some birds around. Because my auntie, Claire, had some quails. And then my parents told me, oh, you want to do some quails because your auntie's doing it. So I said, sure. We got the cage, we got the food and water. And then my My mum and my brother and sister went down, got the quails, I put them in a cage, but sadly the first day wasn't so good.
What happened?
If you look over there, you can see Ollie, the Doberman. He actually attacked the cage and ate them.
Well, to cut a sad story short, the first lesson in animal husbandry was learnt by both dog and farmer. But Hamish did manage to nurse little Dobby back to health.
Some other have names, like you see one of the white ones is called Mother Clucker. I named that one myself. And then there's Dobby.
And the rest?
Nameless.
Nameless. And So how did it all start? Well, Hamish tells me he found his first customer for the quail's eggs at one of the local cafes.
And then I just went down to Dawn and I'm like saying, just in a little nervous voice saying, "Do you want some?" And she's like, "Yes, I would like some, please."
They're quite tiny, aren't they? What, does she scramble them up and have them on toast?
They have 3 times the protein of chicken eggs. Delicious. They have because they're a little bit smaller and compact, you could just taste the flavour in them. They taste like chicken eggs, but a little bit more flavour. It's beautiful.
Do you eat them a lot?
I mostly sell them because...
You don't want to eat your profits, do you, Hamish?
No.
How much do you sell them for?
Per dozen, I sell them $7, but most places for a dozen, I'll sell them for $15. But I don't sell them expensive because I want to keep my customers.
How many do you take to market?
Around summer, I at least had 10 or hopefully 11 dozen.
11 dozen?
Yeah, we always cook some there.
Do you?
With some bread,
Yeah.
Bacon, quail eggs, and focaccia, gluten-free focaccia bread.
You make a good team.
We are a mega team here.
Yeah, it's quite delicious. Yeah. Last week we just scrambled some up and put them on the focaccia toast. We had a filling after that.
Do you have regular customers, Hamish?
My nana's one, Dawn's one, and he's one.
How did you learn all about quails?
It just slowly came to me. I got to learn about what I have. And my auntie said, when I was talking to her, they really like sand, so I got some sand. And they really do like sand. They really do. They just go in the sand and they just... They turn into little fluff balls and then flicking sand everywhere. But it's quite fun having them. You want to see the back ones now?
Please, let's go.
You know how I said that cage was my second one?
Mm-hmm.
I actually have 3 cages, but one of them...
Here we go. This is the grand mansion.
This is the recent ones. My auntie gave me this cage.
It's a multi-level cage, isn't it? It's like
I showed her what I wanted. I wanted to build a cage, and then she built one what's kind of similar to the layout I wanted. It's quite...
And well, why did you decide on this layout? Now, you've got to tell the listeners because they can't see it. Describe it.
Because I want them to be a little bit off the ground so I can take the poop out of the trays. And I want them to have 3 layers so I can give it different quails in it, and then I can still have multi-quails in it in the same area. And you can hear that male chirping. It's really lovely. But sometimes some people stay overnight and they have to camp in the back because we don't have enough rooms, and then you should just hear chir-chir, chir-chir. It's very funny.
Do they wake people up?
Yeah, some people are saying to me, "Your quails are so noisy."
And they just lay everywhere.
Yeah, they just lay anywhere. Because a special breed of Japanese quails, they lay anywhere they are because they're bred to not... The females are bred to not care about the eggs or not being broody. Cool fact.
So they don't need to actually make a nest?
No.
They don't need to perch or...
No.
They lay everywhere.
They just lay and lay. You want to hold one of them?
Sure. Thank you. Love to. Is there a special way to hold quails?
Well, not really.
They usually sit on my head, on my cap.
Giovanni has no hair, so that could be a little painful without the cap.
Yeah, I gotta have a cap on.
Oh, no, my God. My precious quail. So you can... They're quite warm when you hold them in the belly. I had to put one of them down because the male attacked it. And then I roasted it.
You roasted it?
Yeah, they're quite delicious. You know, you got to eat one of them. Just, you know.
You didn't have any worries about eating one of your pet quails?
Luckily it was a male. Luckily it was a male.
Yeah, you don't really need them, do you?
No, only need them if you want to do some hatching.
Would you like to get into that?
Hatching is a really long process of 16 days, or...
Are you making a profit from the business, Hamish?
Yes, I'm making a profit, yeah.
After all your costs?
Yeah, I am. Like, if I bring at least 10 dozen, I'll make $70, and then I will have to give at least a market lady $10 to be at the market stall.
So what are you doing with the rest of the money?
Just put in save and the food.
Are you going to expand the business?
Yeah, I might expand it.
Yeah, well, how far do you think you might take it?
To another decade, probably.
From 30 to 300.
No, Giovanni.
Come on. Let's do it. From 30 to 300.
No, from...
In 4 years.
From 29 to 40, Giovanni. I want to...
Okay.
And from another decker cage. Another decker cage probably would be nice.
Like another deck on top of this one.
I'll keep helping with
Another
the marketing and some good Italian marketing tips there, eh?
Another free decker cage. A 3-decker cage.
A 3-decker beside this one. And that will be your limit? You want to keep it small?
Yeah, I want to keep it small, not too large. Well, I don't really have own this house with my parents.
Yeah, you don't want them to alienate your parents, do you? At this age, anyway.
They do make a little bit smell.
Hamish is kept pretty busy feeding, watering and caring for the birds, ensuring they're protected from the weather, get enough sun and stay healthy. You don't get bored of looking after them?
No, they're quite fun. They actually give me a little job to do around here.
It's your little business, my friend.
Giovanni,
keep it up. Yeah?
Giovanni, what do you think of this?
I think it is fantastic. Young kid like that already, looking after animals and at the same time making a little bit of money out of it. It's a little genius, my friend over there.
Actually, having quails is quite fun. You gotta have responsibility to take care of them, and if you don't, they'll die. But if you do, you have a little reward.
Hamish Sturgeon at his backyard quail coop on the Coromandel Peninsula. You also heard from Giovanni, Vico. They were talking to our producer Sally Round, and you'll find the pair at the farmers market in Coromandel Town come summertime.
Hi, I'm Gloria Harris from Bushhaven Owl Rescue in Invercargill, and you're listening to Country Life.
Like Rural Women New Zealand, who you heard from earlier, RNZ is also celebrating a centenary this year, and we've been hunting out the occasional story also spanning 100 years. One of those stories is that of the Harvey family from Wairarapa. 5 generations have lived, worked and, on occasion, been born on the farm since Thomas Harvey bought it in 1923. Producer Justin Gregory travelled to the sheep and beef farm to meet them and talk about what it takes to keep going over a century of farming.
If it's a metaphor you're after for change and adaptation in farming life, well, here's John Harvey, 76, boiling the jug to make me a cup of instant coffee. While his daughter-in-law, Emma, fires up the espresso machine for her fix.
Yeah, you gotta have a coffee machine when you're a stay-at-home mum.
Oh, sure.
No coffees in town anymore.
Old school, new school, it's still all coffee, innit? And no matter how you get there, farming's a bit the same, I guess. Glorious, thank you. Cheers. We're here in the farmhouse, a building which well predates the Harvey family on this land. John Harvey lived here once with his wife Yvonne. Now it's home to the next generation, son Owen, daughter-in-law Emma, and granddaughters Annabelle and Mackenzie. Yvonne is a bit crook today, so she's not here with us, but we're sitting with our coffees at the kitchen table, talking survival, adaptation and succession. Dora the Explorer, a small keen terrier, is winding away in and out between our feet as we talk. John gives us the history of the Harvey family's ownership of Daisybank.
Well, the first one was Thomas and his wife was Eleanor. And then my father was Stuart and my mum was Jessie. And then myself and Yvonne. And of course I grew up with my sisters, Eleanor and Anne. And now, of course, it's Rebecca and her first husband, Scott. They lived up the road on that McGaffin block, we call it. And now Owen and Emma are living here, so they're the next generation.
And the fifth generation.
And fifth generation, Mackenzie. And Mackenzie's big sister, Annabelle, has just gone to school this morning. So
Mackenzie was actually born in this house even, so...
Yes, yeah.
Was that intended?
Yes, it actually was, yeah. Yeah.
But my grandfather was a very good horseman with draft horses. He was originally farmed down in South, and he came to the North Island to get a new start in about 1905. The rabbits and his health sort of put him off. And my grandfather had a piece of land at Gladstone, and he had contracting teams, metalling contracting. It was horses and drays. And there was quite a big Maori presence out at Gladstone. And my grandfather employed quite a few of the local guys as teamsters and metalling roads, and he had contracts for doing roads. And then in 1923, as I say, he bought this farm. He came and bought this farm here, and then farmed that. And then my father, who was 13 when he came here, worked on the farm. In those days, they were all mixed farms. They'd have a few sheep, a few cows. They milked about 40 cows by hand. They would keep pigs. And they would take the cream to the factory. The Elmdale dairy factory was down at the corner at Dival. And they would bring the skim milk back and feed to the pigs. And also when the cows calved, any bull calves were killed, and the only thing of any value on them was the hide. So they used to skin the bobby calf, and that's why they were called bobby calves, of course, because they got a bob for the skin, a shilling for the skin.
Really?
That's where the word term bobby calves comes from.
Right.
And then the calves' carcasses would be fed to the pigs as well. So nothing was wasted, really.
Yeah.
And it evolved from there.
And so you've basically lived around this area your entire life, yeah?
I've actually lived on the farm my whole life. So I've lived in 4 different houses, but I haven't actually left the farm.
Owen Harvey did leave the farm and lived elsewhere, but it feels like it was always on the cards that he'd come back someday. And then events made it happen.
I think I was down south at the time, and Dad was having an operation on your shoulder, and then my sister, Rebecca, was having her first child, so the labour units on the farm disappeared pretty quickly, so that's when I came home, and then, kind of haven't really left, so, yeah.
And when did you two take over the farm? Not as formal a process, huh?
It's sort of organic.
It's a very gradual process.
It's been sort of organic. There wasn't one sudden day when we said, right, I'm stopping, Owen and Emma are starting. It's just we've gradually evolved, and I've just gradually dropped back, and they've just gradually taken over more and more. I heard a very good quote from an old Australian farmer once that he said, if you're very lucky farming, you'll be the boy twice and the man once on a farm.
Was it that way with your dad and your grandfather before him?
My grandfather, by the time he came and bought Daisybank, he was in his 50s. But then apparently, they said one day, my grandfather just went into the local stock firm, which in those days used to do a lot of farm financing, more than the bank. And he just more or less apparently went in and said, Stuart and Harry are going to be running the farm from now on. Can you just change the name on the account? And they reckon that was about how it worked.
Daisybank was part of the ballot system of the early 20th century, breaking up large farm holdings into much smaller units and then assigning them to new owners. And from that original small ballot, the farm has grown to 2 big land blocks of just over 1,100 hectares, operating now as what Owen calls a pretty standard sheep and beef operation and breeder and finisher. Emma also runs an on-farm agritourism accommodation business, and she and Owen are keeping an eye on new opportunities and challenges.
The one, if you want to call it a big thing that we've probably moved towards at the moment is just a bit of woolless sheep, even with everything that's going on in regards to wool making a comeback. And I literally sold some wool last night, and I wasn't very super convinced on the prices that I got that wool was magically on its way back. So for us, when we'd like part of a local discussion group, and I'm one of very few within that group of 20, 30 guys that have gone down that path. So
I think, John and Yvonne have been doing this for a long time and have worked out a system that works for this climate and this environment and the soils that we have. So I don't think it'll change drastically. Just be tweaking it kind of as we go, I think, but the agritourism thing's cool, like just diversifying income a little bit, I guess, and we're so close to Martinborough that we get a lot of tourists coming over from Wellington and quite a few internationals as well. So that's a bit of an opportunity for us, and we're just starting to venture into building a website at the moment so we'll open the farm up to farm walks and things like that as well, and biking and things. So that's probably our only real change, just adding that stream on to otherwise relatively traditional sheep and beef operation.
But 100 years of farming, you've not only got to be smart and to be able to look forward, you've got to have a bit of luck, eh? Was there ever a chance when the farm wasn't going to stay in the family?
No, I don't know that there was ever a time that we were faced being sold up, but we've been through some pretty hard times, like just every other family farm. The one large part of luck that I had anyway was when I was growing up, I was determined to get my own farm. I knew that at that stage the farm we had here was about 200 hectares, very dry land. It's one of the driest spots in the North Island. So I wanted to expand, and when I bought the farm up the road, and that was in 1978, two brothers owned it, and they were old school, the sort of people that were either 100% for you or 100% against, salt of the earth people. They left the money at the going interest rate at that time, which was quite doable. But then, in a very short space of time, in the early 80s, that's when the huge interest rate started climbing. And some farmers got up to over 20% that were paying on interest, and for a lot of farmers lost their farms. It just wasn't sustainable. I think the highest ever got up to paying interest was probably perhaps 10, 11%, when other people were paying 18 and 22, And so I was very fortunate there. And the other luck, I suppose if you can call it luck, was when I had the good luck to marry Yvonne, who's been such a tremendous support to me. And I think we've worked pretty well as a team.
We're about to wander over to the old wool shed when John brings out some photos from the past. While you're talking here, I've just spotted a photo of a handsome young fella and his granddad.
That's me.
Yes.
And that mare's name's Jean, and that's my grandfather.
John Harvey sitting on Jean with Grandad Thomas Harvey.
That's correct.
Do we know what year that is?
Taken out on the lawn, right out there.
Right. How old are you in that photo?
Oh, I must have been about 4, I suppose. I can remember one of my earliest memories when my father used to go ploughing up here with the horses, just before Dad was due to knock off.
Yep.
My mother would set me off, and I'd walk up the track behind the house and find where he was. And he'd unyoke all the horses, that's those sort of horses, the Clydesdales, and he would lift me up, and he'd sit me on the back. Jean was probably the one he'd used. She was his main mare. She was a wonderful old thing. I would sit on there just like that. It's like sitting in the middle of that table there, and hold on to him, remain. I can still smell the sweaty horse smell.
Yeah.
And then he would just walk home. Wouldn't be leading them or anything. They'd just walk at his heel like dogs. And he'd walk them home back down to the shed where I'm going to take you over and show you, and put them away and wash them down, give them their afternoon feed. And so I can still remember those. They were so huge, but they were so gentle.
Gumboots on, and we're away to the old wool shed across the road. Mackenzie leads the way there on her balance bike. The shed is one of the really old parts of the farm. It holds the history of the farm and the family inside its walls, literally in the shape of prize cards from dog trialling competitions. So what do you got here? First prize, first prize, first prize, third prize, second prize, third prize, third prize, second prize, first prize, first prize. He did all right, didn't he? Yeah.
Was it looking at the 54?
I did a family tree, which we put up for the centennial. We had a display area in here.
Right.
That's the original. That's Thomas and Eleanor Harvey.
Yeah.
Various 10. Jack was actually John Harvey, and he's the guy I was named after.
Right.
He spent all his adult life working with Maori, and that he started off as a secretary for Sir Peter Buck, and he ended up as the chief judge of the Maori Land Court. He's buried in Nongataha up in Rotorua. If you look along here, you'll notice that a lot of them didn't marry once, didn't have family, and then there were 2 of them, Arthur and Jim. They were both killed at the First World War. And we both, Owen and I, we've
both been over and visited their graves, or one of them hasn't got a grave because it was never found, but his name's on the memorial wall there at the Butte
France,
Cemetery.
Belgium?
Yeah, in Belgium, yeah. Just before he went away, he shot a deer. That's the head there.
Oh, goodness.
And the interesting thing about, see that piece of tin wired to it?
Yeah.
In those days, you had to have a licence to shoot deer.
Right.
So what you did was you bought a tag. You bought a tag, and that's it there. As soon as you'd shot the deer, you had to put the tag on its head. And if you were caught with a stag's head without a tag on it, you were for the high jump, basically. It was only a few years after that they more or less...
They started culling them.
Well, they started culling them. But in those days, the Acclimatisation Society. And so that, I mean, OK, as heads go, it's nothing remarkable. But it's always been in the family because it was a link to him not long after he went to Belgium, never came back.
Yeah, yeah.
So when Yvonne and I went over... when did we go? It was 100 years. It was 2017. We actually went to the 100th centennial. They had it at the Menin Gate in Ypres. So what I did was I cut a tine. See that missing tine there? Mm-hmm. I cut that off and I put it on his grave over in... So it's over there in his grave in the Nine Elm Cemetery. Yeah.
I'm feeling that story, John.
Yeah, no, it was pretty moving when I did it, actually, but I thought it was just a nice link. Yeah. So, no, well, this wool shed, when it was originally built, it's quite smaller than it was. If you have a look at the iron on the end of the shed there, Justin, see the holes in it? It's obviously second-hand.
Yep.
As far as we know, this was the wool room. It went out there further, and we suspect it was shortened back when the road was put up or finally put up, that sort of thing. And then down, this is the interesting part here. When we expanded the farm, I put it in these raised boards. But before that, if you just come around here, it was shaped like a T. So this was where the wool handling was.
Right.
Down there were 7 stands. 7 shearing stands went down there.
Yeah.
And out the other side, there were another 7 stands. In that lean-to part, it's a bit hard to visualise now because it's been changed so much. That was an engine. A big shafting plant went through, and it drove all the all the shearing plant. Yeah. So that was 14. Further out that way, there are another 7 stands they put in to shear with the blades. Why they did it, I don't know. But the end of that shed went right out to where the dog kennels are now. And in 1968, among other things, the Wahine storm blew the end off the shed, wrecked it completely. So we shortened it back to here because a lot of that wasn't being used for much by then. And the iron off that shed we used to build that silver wool shed over there, and we got enough timber out of it to build the native timber. We used that to build the walls and so forth. And there was a big line of trees that ran where those trees are there now. There are replacements. There was a big line of trees ran from the road back to the... That was all blown over, and we milled the timber out of them, and that was what we made the rafters out of.
There was another story about this wool shed that you started to tell me when we were... Oh, hello. You got a piwaka up
yes.
Up in the rafters.
Yeah. The one year here, back when my father was still alive, a moorpork stayed here all winter. You used to come in, he was up on the rafters, and you'd come in the daytime and see him sitting there.
It's probably good for keeping the rats and the mice down.
Well, possibly.
Yeah.
It's only happened once.
Yeah. Now, I think I heard Mackenzie had something she badly wanted to show me. No?
There's a little white rabbit.
Let's go. Is this your white rabbit, Mackenzie?
No, this is a wild white rabbit that I've the foxy caught. I don't even know where it's gone. We've lost him. Here he is.
Oh, he's just little.
The girls like to show all of our friends and their kids, like townies, which is quite funny.
You keep showing that to your friends, Mackenzie. You keep doing that.
People think, we're going to see a cute little white rabbit.
So where's the farm stay operation from here?
So it's actually up. It's up. So John and Von's house is just kind of up on the hill there, and it's up. You can't see it from here, but it's just up the farm track. So it's kind of it's got the amazing view out over the valley there, and it's it's a couple of k's up the track, and everyone feels like they're in kind of just a little paradise with no one else around, but actually they're 10 k's to Martinborough, which is ideal. So yeah, it's a pretty cool little spot.
They can still get a latte if they need one.
Yeah, and there's we've got like a little resident group of fallow deer that are wild that live in the bush in front of it, and they are so used to people being there now. They we're up there this morning, and there's a little buck, or he's actually a reasonable sized buck now, and a little group of does, and they just hang out in front of the hut, and people love it. And there's an outdoor bath, and they sit in the bath and watch the deer at night. And yeah,
how busy is the business?
Really good. Yeah, it's it kind of surpassed our expectations, I guess, which is cool. Like every weekend's booked throughout the year, and then like through from October to April, it's pretty well booked, solid, and then just over winter it's a little bit quiet, and we shut it over lambing just so that we don't have people driving through lambing ewes and things. But it's really good. It's a good little side hustle, I guess. It was kind of our way to set up a business that meant I didn't have to go back to work off farm once we had children. So that's kind of my role. And now we're just trying to kind of expand it with other stuff to build the agritourism into more of an income stream, I guess, the business is big enough now that we're not looking to expand it necessarily any further, so we need to be able to make more money some other way. So that's an opportunity for us, I guess.
I mean, side hustles has always been the story of farming, isn't it? There's never just one income stream. Yeah.
And it's cool because it gives me a way to still be at home with the kids and helping on the farm a little bit, but being able to actually financially contribute to the business, which is quite nice. So as much as I love just making smokers and stuff, like it's nice to actually feel like I'm doing something useful a lot of the time.
Smokers pretty useful. There's so many things you're at the mercy of that you can't control yourself. I mean, that's got to have an impact upon someone living on the land day by day. Yes, I know you suffered from a bout of depression a while ago, which is a very common thing amongst farming communities. And men. Yeah.
Everybody, me included, I felt fed up at times. I felt worried at times, and that kind of thing. And as Owen said, it changed. Things change so quickly, in either direction, and you can feel, fed up, and you can feel annoyed and worried, and all those other normal things. But the depression thing, or at least the way I had it, and I'm talking to others are the same. It's actually deeper than that. It's almost different. It just takes over. It's not rational. And it's actually, I think, probably as much as anything, it's a mental condition, and it means that it's not rational. And all the things like normal worrying, you worry about things, and then you sort of think, oh well, there's a few positive sides in that. Well, I found when the depression hit me, it really is like staring into a black hole. You just can't see anything positive in the future.
Who noticed you were spiralling?
Oh, well, Yvonne, I think probably. It's got like we were going through a difficult patch, and of course it was a difficult season. And we're very, very fortunate in Wairarapa. We had some very good support people, one or two in particular, and they came and supported me. And it shows you the wonderful thing that family do. I would hate to think if I was in that, or anybody was in that position, if they didn't have a strong family supporting them.
I can't come up with a better way of putting it, of just, this is deeply important to you, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's my life, really. You don't really own land, you just sort of take care of it for the next generation.
We're not giggling at John, honestly, people listening. Yeah.
No, I know, yes. Mackenzie's decided she's going to water the dogs with it. Small children and water are absolutely fascinating.
Well, the dogs have got to grow too.
That's right, they do, yes, but their water bowls are well and truly full.
And those dogs have hidden way back in their kennels. They've seen Mackenzie coming with it.
That's right, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, Owen, Emma, another 100 years?
Yeah, well, hopefully. I'd like to. That's certainly the plan. That's certainly the plan. So, which will be cool. So, I think from our point of view, which is what sort of Dad said as well. Like, if it's like for us, it's probably you don't really look at. I don't really feel like that we own. Like we don't really own it. We're just the ones that are at the steering wheel at the moment, sort of thing. It's probably how I look at it. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember some non-farming friends once saying, I don't know what we're talking about, going overseas or something, and they said, oh, well, you could sell the farm and go overseas. And I was like, no, like you just have no concept of what a farm is, and it's not ours to sell. Like you're robbing the future generation, I guess. So we'll do everything we can to make sure it stays in the family, providing someone wants to farm it, I guess, is the key. But hopefully, Annabelle's pretty keen. Yeah. Mackenzie will probably be keen. We've got nephews, and so definitely for us, it's to keep it in the family as long as we can, eh?
Emma Harvey, the fifth Mrs. Harvey of Daisybank, no less. Justin was also speaking to Emma's father-in-law, John Harvey, his son Owen, and Emma and Owen's daughter, Mackenzie, at the farm in Wairarapa. The Harvey family are recipients of a Century Farms Centennial Award, which recognises any farm or station which has been in the same family for 100 or more years. Applications for this year's awards for families who farmed their land since 1925 are currently open and close November 30th. You'll find more information about this and photos of the Harvey family on our website, rnz.co.nz/countrylife. And that's this week's Country Life. Thanks for joining us. You can also find photos and more information about the stories in this episode in our show notes. We love getting your feedback and ideas for future stories. You can reach us, country@rnz.co.nz.
We'd hate for you to miss an episode of Country Life. To get every episode free to your phone, click follow on your app now. And if you enjoyed our show, give us a shout on social media or tell a friend by clicking the share button in this app.
Out in the field today were Monique Steele, Sally Round and Justin Gregory.
The show was produced and engineered by David Knowles and Mark Chesterman. Ka kite.
Catch you next time.